Good morning, students. Today we begin with a new chapter and we will focus on the denudation work of a river. Now we all know that river is an agent of gradation, and like all other agents, it simultaneously carries on the creative process of forming new landforms and destroying the old ones. Leveling of the land is constantly being brought about by the agent of gradation with the help of the force of gravity, except in the case of winds, which may carry sediments up a slope. So let us concentrate on what are the important three activities which the agent of an erosion does. Now, the work of a river includes weathering, erosion, and deposition. We all know that weathering does the breaking or destroying, destruction, disintegration of the rocks. Erosion carries away the material, and deposition is the accumulation of the sediments which are brought by the agent of gradation. So WED, weathering, erosion, and deposition, is being done by all the agents of gradation. Now, as far as the work of river is concerned, a river is a natural channel of water. So we can see over here that a river is a natural channel of water that flows down the hill, towards the ocean. This is the ocean, and the river is flowing down the hill, moving gradually towards the ocean. It is the most dominant and widespread agent that sculptures the earth. Its activities are prominent in humid regions which receive adequate amount of rainfall. Now, when it rains, some of the water percolates in the ground through the surface and accumulates as groundwater, it is below the ground. Some of the water evaporates and the rest forms streams. See over here, streams have been formed. Now these small streams flow down the hill following the slope of the land and join to form a river. See over here how the streams are flowing down the hill and ultimately they form a river. Apart from rainwater, the river is also fed by glaciers. The melting of the glaciers can also lead to the formation of a river. The main river along with its tributaries form a river system or a river basin. So this is the main river along with its tributary forms the river basin. The watershed divides two different river systems. So what is exactly a watershed? A watershed describes an area of land that contains a common set of streams and rivers that all drain into a larger body of water, such as a larger river, a lake, or an ocean. Now over here we can see two watersheds. These are the streams which are coming and joining the major river. These are another set of streams which are joining the river. So a land area from which water drains into a river system is known as a watershed. You look at the previous picture, you can see how the tributaries, all these are tributaries, and they make up one large river and they form a watershed. So all the streams coming from these hills join to form a major river which makes it a watershed. I hope you have understood what is a watershed. Now, as far as the source of the river is concerned, so the place of origin of a river is known as the source. For example, Gomukh in the Gangotri Glacier. This is the Gangotri Glacier. Gomukh is below this glacier. That is the origin of the source of the river Ganga. The river basin is the catchment area. So this is the catchment area where a single river system is carried out. It is the area over which rainwater drains to serve as a natural drainage. See the rainwater coming, leading to the formation of streams, and they form a natural drainage. This is the catchment area of the river. That is where all the river water gets accumulated. The mouth of the river is the place where the river meets the ocean. And the runoff refers to the flow of water from the higher to the lower surface. This is the runoff, that is the water which is running down the hill from a higher gradient to a lower surface is known as the runoff. Now let us come to learn about the erosion work of the rivers. Now the erosion work of the rivers is done by three ways: corrosion, abrasion, and attrition. The river flows very swiftly on the steeper slopes, and during this time the velocity of the river is very high. The rock fragments carried by the river in the form of large boulders as well as sand and fine silt. It is also called sediments. So this erosion work is done in three ways. So let's see how. Now what do we mean by the term corrosion? Now the chemical erosion by the running water is called corrosion. And what does it do? It does work of solution. So whatever carbonate minerals or anything that is soluble comes on the way of the river, it dissolves those things or those charged soluble particles and begins to flow, and all those particles begin to flow along with the flow of the river after getting dissolved in water. Now as far as the abrasion work is concerned, it is the wearing away of the beds and the banks of the river by the load which it is carrying. Now, since the river is carrying a lot of load along with it, so these load keeps on wearing and tearing the banks of the river. It also does the same work at the sides as well as the bottom. Now, this results in lateral erosion as well as vertical erosion. That is, the banks are also being eroded as well as the bed of the river also gets eroded because of the abrasive work which is being done by the materials which the river is carrying with itself. As far as attrition is concerned, it refers to the rock fragments which are carried by the river as its load are broken into smaller particles and pieces while rolling down with the running water. They collide with each other and gradually become smaller and rounded. All these rocks begin to become rounded, smaller as they flow along with the water. So these are the three ways in which the erosion work of the river is being done as it moves from the slope towards the plains. Now let's see how the transportation work is done. So we all know that the river not only does the work of erosion, it also transports the material which it is carrying from one place to another. Now, if you look at this diagram, you will find that this is the direction on which the river is flowing. The load which is soluble, anything that is soluble, will be carried in the form of solution. The finer rock particles, silt, mud are suspended in the water, and this gives the river that brownish color during the floods because of all the silt and other suspended mud particles which the water of the river is carrying. As far as the traction load is concerned, it refers to the large, heavier rocks like gravel, pebbles, and boulders which roll on the side of the floor of the river under the influence of gravity. This process of transportation of load is called traction, and the rock fragments transported are called traction load. You can see this huge boulder which is also coming along with the flow of the water, and being very heavy, it cannot be transported very easily. So the process of this transportation of rock fragments is known as traction. Apart from this, there are several other smaller pebbles which keep on jumping and hopping. Now this process is known as saltation, and the rock material transported by this method is known as the saltation load. Now the transporting power of the river depends upon the velocity or speed depending upon the slope of the land, the volume of the water in the river, and the size of the particles which it is transporting. A river has a greater capacity of carrying fine material with it rather than a load of coarse material. Now we have learnt what is the way of transportation by the rivers. Mainly in 4 ways it does: solution, suspension, traction and saltation. Now, how does the river deposits the work or does the work of deposition? Now, when the river leaves the gradient, suddenly its velocity becomes very less, and the velocity of the river is reduced due to the following reasons. One being that the river's velocity suddenly reduces when it comes in contact with a plain region. Here we can see the river coming down the mountain and it has got a steep gradient. But the moment it touches the flat land, its velocity decreases, and excessive increase in the load, the river is not able to carry beyond its carrying capacity. Most of its load gets deposited close to the place where it drops from the mountain and enters a lowland. When the river enters a dry area, its carrying capacity decreases. Hence, most of the work which is being done by the river is the work of deposition. And how does the work of deposition takes place? This we can understand from the following diagram. So we can see that this is the river and the river is moving in this direction. Now it so happens that in the process of deposition, the large and heavy rock fragments are settled down first. Then the cobbles and the pebbles. Then comes the sand, because they are slightly bigger than silt, and last is clay. So we can see over here how the river how the river allows the largest deposition work to be done earliest, and later on how the cobbles and pebbles, which are smaller in size, begin to get deposited. The fine particles may be transported over a long distance to the mouth of the river. This is the reason why coarse material gets deposited at the foothill in a large quantity, and most of the fine silt gets deposited in the lower course of the river, especially near the mouth of the river. And from the mouth of the river, it gets deposited on the sea floor. Thus, the intensity of erosion, transportation, and deposition varies in different sections of the river depending upon the velocity of the river. We can see over here the erosion, transportation, and deposition of the river depends on the velocity of the river. Today we learnt about the topic where we saw how the river does the work of erosion, transportation, and deposition. It was an introductory lesson of how the river does all these work, and in the later part of the lesson, we are going to learn about several other features which the river makes while it comes from the mountain and reaches towards the sea. So that is what we have enough time for today. Thank you.